the audience members.
Right now?
Yeah.
Just
pick it, don't matter.
Do we say hi?
hello? Alright.
You ready? I'm gonna start my timer, okay?
Okay.
Alright. We good?
We're good.
Okay, my name is Joey Ingle, and this is my how-to presentation on changing differential and transmission fluid. Let's see. Here we go. First of all, it's important to know what a differential is, and looks like my slides messed up. But the jobs of a differential are to put the power to the wheels, and mainly that comes from your engine, and it goes through different gears and different things such as like a drive shaft, your transfer case, and all that, and eventually it goes through your axles, but first it's got to go through your differential right here. And the differential, what it does is it pretty much takes the power and puts it to the axles, which turns the wheels. And it can do a neat thing. It can actually let one wheel spin faster while the other wheel spins slower, and that helps going around corners. Like, you know, if you see skid marks on the road, it looks like 3 or 4 different tires sometimes. That's because when you go around a corner, your wheels don't all turn the same. Your inside wheel turns slower than the outside wheel, and allows you to make the turn. So really, a differential is pretty important to your overall well-being of your car. Let's see. Next is, what's a transmission? And I'm pretty sure everybody has a general idea of what a transmission is. But what it does is, since your engine only operates from, say, 1 to 6,000 RPMs, and it does that all throughout whatever speed you go, the transmission takes the power from the engine and it uses the gears in the transmission right here. You see it's a pretty complex piece of machinery, and it makes use of the engine's torque. So pretty much the transmission gets power from the engine, and through different gears and gear ratios, it allows you to go different speeds and shifts up and down for you. I'm sure some of y'all have driven a manual before, and it's a little different. But that's a transmission. Let's see here. Why do these parts require fluid? Moving parts create heat. You can rub your hands together and feel that it creates heat. And what would happen if you put some water in there? It would dissipate the heat a little bit. It adds lubrication and transfers the heat. And this specific gear oil for transmissions and differentials is higher viscosity, which means that it's thicker than, let's say, motor oil, and it has added elements to protect parts against corrosion, like sulfur and other things. And let's see here. Why do we need to change our fluids? Damage prevention is obviously the number one. Nobody wants to be going down the road and get their car blown up. Not enough fluid. Over time you lose fluid through seals, or it just leaks out. And without that, you can't get the proper heat distribution. So the parts get worn, they get excessively overheated, and then they can break. And sometimes you can get water in there, like if you go through a big mud puddle or do anything like that, you can get water actually in your transmission or in your differentials. And let's see here, metal. The gears inside, obviously they're going to break down over time, and there's going to be pieces of metal in there. And I have a little illustration here. You can see that the oil is hydrophobic, so it doesn't combine with the water. So really, when you get water in your oil, it's bad news because you don't get the proper lubrication needed. Okay, so on to my how-to. I've named it, Let's Get Dirty. Dana 35 differential. And this is the rear axle on a Jeep, on most Jeeps from '88 to present. And the first thing you want to do is, obviously, if you try this at home, you want to be careful. You want to be very careful. You want to have all the proper tools like a jack and jack stands. You don't want to get hurt because the car that lands on top of you is definitely going to do some damage. So after it's all secure, you're going to want to undo the fill plug first, because if you get everything else undone and realize you can't undo the fill plug, then you're kind of in bad news because you can't fill it back up. So you're going to get your 3/8" square drive and undo the fill plug first. And after that comes out, there are 10 bolts, 1/2" size. You're going to undo those. And then you're going to take a hammer, since there's a gasket on here, it's kind of sticky, and just tap this outside cover, and it comes right off. And this is what you're left with right here. A bunch of gears, some nasty oil. So you take the oil out, you let it drain out, and then you clean it out, clean everything out. You have your gasket here that you're going to want to put back on, clean everything up real good. Then over here you can see that you put the new bolts in without the oil first. Then after everything's set up, you go in and you put your gear oil back in. As you can see, a Dana 35, which is the rear end of this Jeep, takes 3.5 pints of this 80 weight gear oil. So it's not too hard, just a really messy job. Now the next thing we got here is the transmission. And again, it's very important to maintain safety because you don't want to get hurt. And that's the last thing that you want. And the transmission's a little different because you have on the passenger side is the drain hole, which is lower, and then on the driver's side you have the fill hole. So when you're going through here, obviously, you want to make sure that you can undo the fill hole before you undo the drain hole, or all your fluid's going to run out and you can't fill it back up. So after you make sure that you can get both of those undone, you go ahead and take out both of the fill plugs, the drain plug and the fill plug. And then a little trick here is to get a piece of cardboard and put it right underneath the fill hole right here, so when the oil comes out, it drips onto your pan underneath. So after it's done draining, you want to, this is on a manual transmission Jeep, you want to undo the shifter boot so you have access to the transmission to fill it back up. So you let it drain out, and you put the fill plug back in, and then you go in here and you add your gear oil. And then, remember how I said it has a fill and a drain plug? Well, you have the drain plug in, closed, and you put gear oil into the transmission until it comes out of the top fill hole. And once you have oil, clean oil, as you can see here, coming out of the top fill hole, then you're ready to go. You put the plug in and you're done. And it's very important that we be responsible, especially in this day and age, because you know, EPA, everybody's going green. But this is a oil pan right here where you collect all your used oil, and you can dump it back into your containers and take it to local auto parts store, and they'll dispose of it for you. See here. That's about the end of my presentation, but I have some fun pictures here. This is in Disney, Oklahoma. This is called the Big Meat Run. This was earlier this year, and it was just a blast. I thought I'd show y'all some pictures. You might like it. This is called, I think it's called Little Blue right here. It's a very, very popular attraction. And then here's one of my Jeep in Devil's Den. And as you can see, it's all muddy and wet down there, so after I got done, I had to go home and change all my fluids like I just talked about. And here's another one, doing a little rock crawling. That's actually out in Bella Vista. And my works cited page. And I'd like to give a special thanks to a member on Jeep Forum named Mean Max. He provided all of the pictures for me. And he's been very helpful throughout all this. So I appreciate you guys.